I just noticed behind me John Deere tractors. I know a lot about John Deere. I love the company, but as you know, they've announced
John Deere is moving some production from Iowa to Mexico. The company is acquiring land there to build a facility that will be operational.
You won't believe this one. John Deere, the iconic American company known for its green tractors and deep roots in United States manufacturing, just made a move that sent Donald Trump into a full-blown meltdown, and now, he's coming for them hard. But here's the twist, John Deere isn't backing down either. In response to Trump's shocking outrage, they just fired back with their own response, and let's just say, things are getting ugly. The question right now is, what exactly has John Deere done to warrant such a reaction from Trump? And what does it mean for the United States agricultural sector and general economy? Buckle up, because this one is wild. Let's get into it. If you drive through America's heartland, there's one thing you'll see everywhere, those iconic green and yellow tractors. They serve as a reminder that John Deere has been a symbol of American agriculture for nearly 2 centuries. But now, the company that once stood for American strength, innovation, and hard work is suddenly in the middle of a political firestorm, and its very future could be at stake. It gets even worse because the company isn't caught in this firestorm with just anybody, they are in it with one of the most powerful men in the world right now, Donald Trump. Speaking of power, John Deere isn't one to be played with either. This company was built from scratch and has managed to single-handedly dominate not just the American agricultural sector but other sectors as well. Believe it or not, it all started with one man and a simple idea. Back in 1837, a blacksmith named John Deere saw that farmers in the Midwest were struggling. The plows they were using were completely useless in the region's thick, sticky soil. So, he came up with an extremely bright idea, to invent a brand new kind of plow made of polished steel that could cut through the soil like butter. Unsurprisingly, farmers loved it, demand exploded, and before long, John Deere the man became John Deere the company. But it didn't end there. By the late 1800s, Deere wasn't just making plows anymore. They were building equipment that completely changed the game for American farming, helping farmers produce more food, more efficiently, at a scale the world had never seen before. Fast forward to the 20th century, and John Deere was everywhere. They introduced the first tractors, massive harvesters, and advanced farming technology that helped turn the United States into a global agricultural powerhouse. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, John Deere makes tractors, but why does this matter so much, and how could they possibly threaten Donald Trump? Here's the thing, John Deere isn't just a company, it's a pillar. And when you mess with John Deere, you're messing with the entire United States food supply. And it's not just farmers, John Deere equipment is used in construction, forestry, and even the military. So, when John Deere announced their plans to make a move that could directly affect Trump, he completely lost it, and let's just say we got the most shocking response ever. But what's the real reason for this back and forth between these two powerhouses? Let's break down the real reason this whole mess started in the first place. John Deere just made an extremely huge decision that's about to shake the United States agricultural sector, and it's definitely got everyone talking. Guess what? They've decided to move part of their manufacturing to Mexico. Yes, you heard that right. The company that has spent decades building its brand around American farmers and American jobs has decided to shift a huge chunk of its production across the border. And let's just say, people are not happy about it. Now, before you start imagining a John Deere factory just packing up and driving south overnight, let's be clear, this isn't even their first move like this. They've done it before. John Deere has had factories in Mexico for years. As a matter of fact, they already produce tractors, engines, and other equipment there. In 2010, John Deere moved some tractor manufacturing from Waterloo, Iowa, to Mexico. In 2021, the company once again announced plans to move cab production from Iowa to Mexico. Over the years, they've also expanded their production in Brazil, India, and China to serve growing markets. So, this isn't some sudden betrayal, let's just say, it's part of their much bigger business strategy. But this time around, the move is way bigger than any they've ever made, and it's making a lot of noise. According to John Deere, the main reason for shifting certain production lines to Mexico comes down to two key factors: lower labor costs and worker shortages in the United States. Let's break it down. According to the company, it's way more expensive to run their business in America than in Mexico. They've tested it out with smaller moves here and there, and that's why they've decided to make a larger shift. And they're not even the first to make this move. For decades, American companies have been outsourcing production because labor costs are significantly lower outside the United States. But let's be real, Mexico is cheaper. In Mexico, the average hourly wage for a factory worker in the manufacturing sector is around $5 to $7 per hour. However, in the United States, that number can be over $25 an hour or even more. And that's not all. When you factor in benefits such as healthcare and retirement plans, that number goes way up. From a business standpoint, this means John Deere may be able to save a lot of money on production while still maintaining the same quality of machinery. Talk about maximizing profits. John Deere is insisting that they can save millions, maybe even billions, by paying workers in Mexico far less than they would in the United States. And if they could, why wouldn't they take that deal? Believe it or not, this is the ugly side of corporate America, where companies love to wave the American flag while making decisions that prioritize profits above all else. John Deere proudly displays the American flag in its branding, but when it comes to paying American workers a fair wage, things get complicated. Does this move mean John Deere is turning its back on American workers? Well, that depends on who you ask. The company insists it's not abandoning the United States. In fact, they claim to be heavily invested in American manufacturing, pointing out that they have pumped over $2 billion into U.S. factories since 2019. They've also stated that most of their equipment will still be built in America. But for the workers watching their jobs disappear, that explanation doesn't mean much. Now, here's where things get even more complicated. John Deere isn't just saying Mexico is cheaper, they're also claiming they can't find enough workers to get the job done in the United States. Sounds surprising, right? With all the talk about job losses and unemployment, how can a company as big as John Deere still struggle to hire? The truth is, this isn't just a John Deere problem. For years, factories across the U.S. have faced a major skilled labor shortage. Younger workers are avoiding manufacturing jobs, while older, experienced workers are retiring. This constant labor shortage has forced companies like John Deere to rethink their strategies. John Deere says they've been offering higher wages, better benefits, and even signing bonuses to attract workers, yet it hasn't been enough. Instead of waiting for more workers to apply, they've decided to move jobs where the labor supply is more stable, Mexico. This decision hits home for American farmers, the people who rely on John Deere the most. If you're a farmer, switching to another brand isn't easy. John Deere dominates the U.S. farming equipment market, and their machinery is essential to the agricultural industry. That's why this move isn't just seen as a business decision, it's viewed as a threat sending shockwaves through multiple industries. So, what happens when John Deere moves jobs to Mexico? For American workers, it's another slap in the face. These are real people, real families, who built their lives around these factory jobs. Now, they are watching their livelihoods disappear. And while John Deere insists it's still heavily invested in U.S. manufacturing, the reality is that once a company starts outsourcing, it rarely stops. Today, it's a few production lines. Tomorrow? It could be much more. Manufacturing was once a pillar of the American economy, but if companies continue moving operations overseas, many communities that once thrived on factory jobs will be left behind. For American farmers, this could spell trouble. They rely on John Deere machinery to keep their businesses running. If more production moves overseas, it could mean delays, supply chain disruptions, and higher costs. Farmers could face rising equipment prices since importing machinery back into the U.S. could drive up costs. These increases would then be passed down to farmers who are already struggling. To make matters worse, supply chain delays could intensify. Getting replacement parts and new equipment is already a nightmare, and shifting manufacturing outside the country only increases dependence on foreign production. If another major disruption, whether political, natural, or economic, occurs, American farmers and businesses could be left scrambling. Longer delays in machinery repairs could also become a significant issue. While John Deere claims this move benefits their business, many in the American agricultural community, including Donald Trump, see it as a direct threat to their survival. And Trump isn't taking it lightly. In fact, he's fired back with a threat even bigger than John Deere could have imagined. If you thought Trump would stay silent while an iconic American company ships jobs overseas, think again. If there's one thing Trump is known for, it's his ability to fire back, especially when provoked. That's exactly what John Deere has done, and their decision has sent Trump into full-blown rage mode. The man who built his political brand on America First and keeping jobs in the US is not about to let this slide. His response? Brutal. The moment news broke about John Deere expanding operations in Mexico, Trump went off. At a rally in Pennsylvania, in front of a massive crowd, he made it very clear, if John Deere follows through with this move, they'll face severe consequences. He warned, "I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States." A 200% tariff? That's not just a slap on the wrist. That's probably an economic declaration of war. Let's put this in perspective. If John Deere actually gets hit with a tariff like that, it means every single piece of equipment they manufacture in Mexico will cost double to bring back into the United States. This means that if a tractor sells for $100,000, suddenly it costs $200,000 instead. If a harvester costs $500,000, now it's $1 million. Like it or not, farmers would be forced to either pay insane prices or start looking at competitor brands. And this stands as a threat to John Deere and the survival of its business. But Trump didn't stop there. Oh no, he made sure to remind the company that he's not afraid to go after big corporations. He went ahead and reminded everyone of Harley-Davidson, an American motorcycle company that has become a symbol of freedom, rebellion, and classic biker culture, and how they wanted to move to Thailand but were stopped. And let's be honest, Trump's not bluffing. This is exactly what he did during his first tenure as President of the United States. Whenever a company moved jobs out of America, he publicly humiliated them and slapped tariffs on their products. And now, it seems like John Deere is next on his list. But the real question is Donald Trump just talking big, or can he actually make this happen? Well, the answer is absolutely. This isn't just campaign talk anymore. Donald Trump is back in the White House, and ever since he got back in, he's been going after companies that move jobs overseas and threatening big tariffs on other countries. He's making it clear, if you don't build in America, you'll pay more to sell here. He's already raised tariffs on imports, put pressure on Mexico and Canada, and even warned of even tougher trade rules. And if anyone thinks he's going to let John Deere get away with this without a fight, they haven't been paying attention. Reports from inside the White House suggest that Trump was furious, and that's how he came up with the idea of a high tariff that would make it nearly impossible for John Deere to sell their Mexico-made products in the United States without suffering massive financial losses. And he didn't stop there. Apparently, Trump has allegedly ordered his administration to review all government contracts with John Deere. That's right, he's going straight for their biggest source of money. The US government relies on John Deere equipment for a lot of operations, from military bases to federal land projects. And if Trump decides to cut them off, that could mean billions in lost revenue for the company. And then there's the biggest weapon in Donald Trump's arsenal, public humiliation. Trump knows how to rally the American people against a company, and is already using his social media platforms to blast John Deere nonstop. Farmers who have supported the brand for generations are now furious, and they're making their voices heard. At this point, this isn't just an economic fight, it's a full-scale war on John Deere's reputation. Let's be real, the real danger isn't just the tariffs. It's the complete destruction of John Deere's public image. If enough farmers start boycotting the brand, and if enough American workers start demanding that John Deere keep jobs in America, it could create a downward spiral for the company, one that even their billions in revenue might not be able to fix. A farmer wrote on Reddit, "I'll never buy another John Deere tractor or any other of their products." Another added, "John Deere is loyal to shareholders, not employees or even customers. Anything they say otherwise is propaganda." One more read, "I've been a fan of John Deere for years. I've supported them in my community, defending their position on the right to repair and their claims on farmers' data as a choice that farmers have. However, I'm done with them." Some farmers have even accused the company's chief executive officer, John May, of steering the company in the wrong direction. One person said, "In my mind, John May's leadership is taking the company in the wrong direction. While making record profits, they are firing Iowa employees and shipping those jobs to Mexico. I'm done with Deere, I dumped my stock today. Precision planting has better planters anyway." Well, if Trump follows through on this tariff, the impact will be devastating for John Deere, and it's possible that their Mexico strategy may collapse almost overnight. Because although manufacturing in Mexico might be cheaper, if they can't sell their products in the United States without taking massive financial losses, what's the point? With tariffs in place, the cost of importing their own equipment would be so high that American farmers might start looking at competitor brands. This could push John Deere into an impossible position, where they either have to cancel their Mexico expansion or risk losing their biggest customer base, American farmers. And then there's the political fallout. John Deere isn't just facing pressure from Trump, they are now on the radar of pro-America lawmakers who are rallying behind the president. This could lead to discussions about potential new trade policies that would make it even harder for companies like John Deere to move jobs overseas without serious consequences. If these discussions turn into laws, John Deere might not just be dealing with tariffs, they could be facing permanent restrictions that force them to keep manufacturing in the United States whether they like it or not. Now, here's where things get tricky, because while Trump's plan might be devastating for John Deere, it could also have some unintended consequences. If John Deere backs out of Mexico, that doesn't automatically mean they'll bring all those jobs back to America. The company could look for another loophole, shifting production to another foreign country where tariffs aren't as harsh. And let's not forget the fact that John Deere has power, too. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation here. They have armies of lawyers, lobbyists, and allies in the country who might start pushing back against Trump's moves. And who knows? If John Deere decides to challenge the tariffs in court, this fight could turn into a long, drawn-out legal battle that drags on for years. But here's the thing, Trump doesn't care about any of that. For him, this isn't just about John Deere. It's about sending a message to every single company that thinks they can move American jobs overseas and get away with it. He just wants to make an example out of them, and if it means taking this fight all the way to the Supreme Court, it sure seems like he's ready to do it. But how exactly has John Deere reacted to Trump's threats? Well, it turns out that the company isn't taking it lightly with Trump, and they plan to move forward in a way that's shocking. John Deere is not backing down despite the threats from President Trump. The farming giant finally broke its silence, making it super clear to its American customers that they are all about optimizing global production and ensuring long-term competitiveness. In much simpler terms, let's just say they're not rolling over. The company released a carefully worded statement, posted to YouTube, where the Green brand spokesperson spelled out their commitment to United States manufacturing. The statement read, "Over the past 5 years, John Deere has spent over $2.5 billion investing in American factories. Deere employs over 30,000 people distributed over 60 locations in 16 states. Some of that investment has gone toward installing a new production line for the recently introduced very high horsepower tractor line at Waterloo, Iowa, a new see and spray sprayer line at Des Moines, Iowa, and the combine assembly line at East Moline, Illinois. That's not all." The brand had more to say because the vice president and manufacturing lead for the United States and Mexico for the brand's agriculture and turf division, Tammy Hedgren, opened up about the major reason why the brand made the decision to cut production costs during the current downturn in equipment sales and why it's so important to them. He said, "This year we're seeing lower commodity prices and increased interest rates. As a result, our customers are choosing to delay some of the purchases of new equipment. This isn't just impacting John Deere, it's impacting the entire agricultural industry and our competition. In this economic climate, we've had to make some really difficult economic decisions." Translation? Well, they're not backing down, and they made it clear that if they failed to adapt to the current economic climate, they could risk major financial damage. But Trump definitely wasn't buying it, and to further complicate matters, at a campaign rally, Trump boasted to the crowd that he had single-handedly stopped John Deere from moving jobs out of the country. Trump's statement came during an interview at the Economic Club of Chicago, and according to him, his aggressive trade stance, tariff threats, and America First policies had forced Deere to backtrack on its plans. He said, "They announced about a year ago they are probably not going to build the plants. I kept the jobs here." However, something was off because his statement did not provide proof to support this claim in response to inquiries. Shortly after Trump's victory lap, John Deere issued another statement, and this time, they weren't as careful with their words. The company flat out denied that Trump had stopped them, making it clear that they never changed their plans and that their decisions are based on business strategy, not political pressure. Additionally, John Deere made it clear once again that they rely heavily on their highly skilled American workforce and that they recognize it as a cornerstone of the company's success and innovation. Fabio Castro, the company's vice president and factory manager at Waterloo Works, said, "We rely heavily on our highly skilled American employees, from our local communities, to safely deliver quality tractors that are the best in the world." What makes this entire situation even more heated and controversial are the reactions the tension has elicited across the political and business spectrum. The reactions from various groups on this particular controversy have been nothing short of overwhelming. Some people, especially in the political sector, are definitely in support of the tariff threat. For example, Senator Rubio, who has built his political brand on protecting American jobs, was furious over the decision, and he wasted no time calling out John Deere's leadership and demanding answers. In a letter, Rubio blasted the company, calling its move to Mexico a betrayal of American workers and a dangerous shift that could have long-term consequences for the United States economy. But here's the part that really got people talking. Rubio accused John Deere of putting short-term profits over American jobs. And he took it a step further by urging Congress to take action and reform United States trade policies to ensure that companies that outsource jobs don't get tax breaks or other benefits from the federal government. His argument is, if a company wants to manufacture in Mexico, fine, but they shouldn't get the same treatment as businesses that keep jobs in America. He said, "This decision isn't just about one company, it's about whether we allow major United States manufacturers to abandon American workers while continuing to benefit from the American economy." While Trump supporters are cheering him on, the business world? Not so much. Mark Cuban, the popular billionaire investor and outspoken Trump critic, went off about the tariff threats, calling them insane and warning that Trump could end up destroying an iconic American company. According to Cuban, if Trump goes through with his 200% tariff, it won't just hurt John Deere, it'll send shockwaves through the entire manufacturing industry. And he's not the only one sounding the alarm. Bill George, the former chief executive officer of Medtronic, took things even further, slamming Trump as anti-capitalist and saying he's attacking American businesses instead of helping them. He also urged the company chairman not to allow. Trump urged companies not to let themselves be bullied, saying, "Do what's right for your company. Do not be intimidated." But his critics aren't just concerned about Deere, they are worried about what this means for American businesses in general. If Trump starts personally targeting companies that move jobs abroad, where does it end? Things get even more interesting as economic experts warn that Trump's tariff threat might not even be legal. Gary Hufbauer, a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, stated that if Trump tries to punish John Deere with tariffs, he'd be violating the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. According to him, the agreement sets tariff schedules that could render Trump's plans useless, potentially leading to legal challenges and retaliation from trade partners. Mary Lovely, another senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, warns that targeting individual companies with tariff threats would set a dangerous precedent. She argued, it would basically be a government takeover of the company, telling them how to allocate capital. This is running counter to what we think about as American capitalism. Then there's the bigger question, would tariffs on John Deere actually help American workers? Agricultural economist Ian Sheldon believes they could backfire in a big way. He insists that Trump's plan to protect American jobs would actually hurt American farmers, who rely heavily on John Deere equipment. George, an executive fellow at Harvard University, emphasized that these tariffs would ultimately raise prices for American farmers. He stated, those tariffs will get passed on to the farmer. John Deere is an outstanding company. This is an American treasure. And tariffs are only going to weaken American companies, not strengthen them. Right now, John Deere is scrambling to defend itself. They know they are under serious fire and are doing everything they can to weather the storm. The big question remains, will they back down, or will Trump make them his next major target? Tell us in the comments section below. Don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.